Hello everyone out there in YouTube land, Facebook land. As some of you may or may not know, I once got the police in Britain to admit to human rights abuse without them even knowing they were doing it. So, I'll quickly tell you the story while I put my socks on. So the story is, right, the only arrest of my entire life, I was wrongly arrested for the crime I was actually the victim of. I got assaulted by someone, although it was an accident. They did mean to assault me, but not as bad as it was. And I shouted at them for it, right? And so the police arrested me because she was a female, I'm male. So of course I got blamed. So this is the only arrest of my entire life. And the police had built a new police station in Newcastle, a super police station called Forth Banks Police Station, right? And I happened to be one of their first guests. So they had wrongly arrested me for the crime I was actually the victim of and tried to charge me with it. They kept me in a cell at Forth Banks for 23 hours and 42 minutes, right? Bearing in mind, I was only being charged with common assault. It's like shouting at someone, making them fear for their safety. You're not even being charged with touching them. You're just being charged with making them fear for their safety. But the truth of the matter is I couldn't have been charged for making them fear for their safety because this person had violently assaulted me. So I was using reasonable self-defense by shouting at them to don't ever fucking do that again, right? So the police were not aware about the information that I was violently assaulted, and despite me telling them and trying to tell them, they just ignored it. But the worst part about it is, I didn't just get arrested, they took me away from my newborn baby, my 2-week-old little girl, and I had to fight and fight and fight just to get back. And it kind of drove me insane. But back to the human rights. So while at Forth Banks, in that 23 hours, 42 minutes, they gave me 2 sausages and like 1 glass of water. Not like an actual glass, like a small triangle, maybe a quarter of a glass of water. So at this time, the UK was under EU law. And under EU human rights law, they had not fed their prisoner properly because a male needs 2,500 calories a day. They give me 2 sausages. Not to mention the fact that I was in severe pain from a sciatic nerve. You know, I was learning to walk again at the time. And they didn't give me my medication. So I was in like mega pain. So I wrote a complaint to them after, I got released. And how they'd, I told them how they didn't give me enough food. That's one of the complaints. Didn't give me enough water, another complaint, and how they denied me legal representation because when the police officer came to get me for the interview, I thought they'd just find out what happened and let me go, realise their mistake, but no. So the police officer came to the cell like 10 minutes before the interview and was like, "Oh, we're going to interview you soon." And I was like, "Okay, then I want a solicitor," because I didn't need one as far as I was concerned before that. Like, why would I? I hadn't done anything wrong. So when they came and said I was going to be interviewed, I was like, "Oh, right, they're going to try and charge me with something here, so I want a solicitor." And he says, "Oh, well, it's too late for that now." Now, the reason it was too late is because they'd kept me in that cell for 23 hours and 42 minutes. Now, legally in the UK, you can only hold someone for 24 hours without charge. You have to charge them otherwise or release them. And it would have took longer than that for a solicitor to arrive. So they denied me legal representation. But in the complaint, they denied that aspect of it, but agreed that they didn't give me enough food and water. So I wrote them another letter, politely advising them how they had just admitted to human rights abuse. They had just admitted to breaching EU human rights abuse by not giving their prisoner enough food and water, not to mention the fact that they had falsely arrested him and taken him hostage on false pretenses. Kind of left that out, right? Then we move on to how they resolved it, right? Now, I became really mentally unwell from what they did. Like, they took me away from my newborn baby. Like, I was so unwell from it. Like, it killed me. Anyway, so their resolution was, I went to the Gateshead police station in my area to speak to the head of Gateshead police station. And the head of Gateshead police station, the head of the Gateshead police, sat down in front of me on his desk, took me upstairs to his desk, sat with him across from his desk, and he made me sign a form to say I was of sound body and mind when I wasn't. But I didn't really understand that because I wasn't of sound body and mind. And They made me sign a document to say that I was going to put it on local resolution statistics instead of national resolution statistics. But what he was doing was tricking me. He was tricking me and lying to me. What he wanted to do was put the human rights abuse down as a neighbourhood local resolution, which I didn't get told. He didn't tell me that. He didn't word it that way. He said that he was going to put it on local statistics instead of national statistics. And it was just easier for him because he was going on holiday and blah, blah, blah. And I bought it, you know. I was mentally unwell from what they'd done. I was seriously mentally unwell from what they'd done. So they tricked me. So what they had done was abused the human rights of a man, admitted to it, and then got him to help them cover it up. So it went on it went down as a neighbourhood resolution instead of a human rights abuse, but they admitted to it, and it was under EU law, and it was human rights abuse. Now, the part where I was mentally unwell, like I said to him, I says, if I am mentally unwell, like, how do I prove that? And he was like, oh, well, you'll have to do that. Now, as it so happens, I was held under the Mental Health Act not long after that. This is years ago now. I'm all right now. And guess who got sent out? The police. So the police came out because I'd been determined so unwell. They stripped me of my human rights, took me off to a highly secure facility, right? After assaulting me and fucking my neck and my shoulder, dickheads, giving me this, this one. Giving me this, what would I call it? Disfigurement for the rest of my life. Doesn't seem like much, but my skin was left in the cuffs for half an hour while they dragged me off to a highly secure facility. So they proved themselves I was mentally unwell. Now, it took me 10 long years, to hand in the evidence to prove my innocence. So I handed in a written confession by the person who assaulted me, stating that they had assaulted me. So I rang the police about it. They came out. A police officer came to check, right? And I'd printed off a copy of it so they could take it with them. Gave him the copy, and I showed him the message so he could see that it was genuine. I didn't make it up. I didn't Photoshop it or fabricate it. It was genuine, right? And so I've handed that evidence in, and the sergeant apparently said, oh, well, the court's already dealt with it. There's nothing we could do. Now, I'm not being funny. This is a police mistake where they've charged an innocent man of the crime where he was actually the victim of. They took him away from his newborn baby. It drove him insane. They broke his human rights. The list goes on. I ended up getting tortured by the NHS as a result. I'm not getting into that. Like being forced injections against my will, like a human experiment. But so I've handed that evidence. It's maybe been like 4 months now since I handed that evidence in, 5 months. So I've handed in evidence to the police that would exonerate an innocent man of a crime, and they've just sat on their hands. So you can imagine if I was in prison, I'm not, I'm at home, but if I was in prison and they had wrongly convicted an innocent man and someone hands the evidence into them to prove that they didn't do their jobs wrong, they would just leave that man there to rot. They would rather cover up their mistakes than deal with it. So what I've had to do is I've had to put in a complaint that they've not processed the evidence. And because there's a backlog of complaints with Northumberland Police, I've been waiting 4 months for them to deal with it, right? So, literally, the police in my country tortured me for 10 years, Northumberland Police, and I've handed in the evidence to prove it, and they're sitting there like, oh, there's nothing we can do. Nothing we can do. Ugh.
Okay, have a look at what I...
The truth of the matter is, it's a police mistake, so the police have to fix it. Now, I could obviously go and pay a solicitor to try and deal with this, but I don't think I should have to pay someone to deal with this. The police's mistake, I've proved they're wrong, they should deal with it. It's as simple as that. So what I've now had to do is put in a complaint to the Quality Care Commissioner over the misuse of the Mental Health Act in the UK, which was used to treat me like a human experiment, forcing injections into me. They knew wouldn't cure me, knew wouldn't help me, and, I was just lying in a bed for 2-3 years like this. Because they just forcefully injected me with stuff I didn't want, didn't help me, and they ended up just putting me back on what I was on, which I told them to keep me on 3 years before that, and I've been fine ever since. So they've ruined 3 years of my life, the NHS, because of police mistakes, and yet no one gives a fuck. Let's all talk about migrants in the boats, not human torture.